Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host, Flavia Barris, as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media, including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur.
Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. Today we get to speak with Bob King. He literally wrote the book on closing. It's called The Joy of Closing, the definitive guide to building trust, getting the deal, and creating happy customers. Bob is an author, closing coach, filmmaker, and sales superstar who consults with sales teams and sales professionals of all types, from retail to in-home sales to business, bringing one-call magic to pitches, curing slumps, boosting team performance, and turning total strangers into happy customers. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you. That's me. Nice to be here, Flavia.
It's great to have you. So I was joking a little bit earlier because I work a lot in real estate. And for us, closing means that process at the end of an escrow. It's usually the end of our work, not the beginning. And I don't know, maybe someone's listening and they work in the restaurant industry. So to them, the word closing, they're immediately like, yep, got to close up shop at the end of the night and put things away. And it's funny how vocabulary works. But so for you, tell us, what is closing? What is this closing that you are an expert in?
So there's two forms of it that I deal with. The closing's a part of sales that many even seasoned professional salespeople see as somehow awkward or even beneath them, which is that part where you work with the customer's resistance to get them something they want. And a lot of the training on closing versus selling is very self-will oriented. You stare at the picture of the Ferrari you want to buy or the sound system that you want for your home or the safari you're going to take your family on vacation to, and then use that to motivate putting your needs ahead of the customer's needs and making sure you get that deal no matter what. And I was trained in that school, but as my ability to close people developed and I got more and more connected to how I could best be of service to my customers, what I realized was that was an old idea that didn't really apply to working for a company that really was a great choice for my customers, that was dedicated to customer service, had really great products, and in many ways was going to be the best choice for that customer to make. Really what closing is to me is working with the customer's resistance to get them something they want.
So what's your backstory? How did you end here?
I'm not done, not ending, but how did I get here? I started in the film business. I had some success. I had a little more success than some of the people I went to film school with, but I never really found a way to make money. I had a movie that went to Sundance and a movie that didn't go anywhere, which kind of coincided with the global economic collapse of 2009. And the real estate income that I had been living on dried up, and I had to find a way to make money. So I went on all these job interviews, and most of them were commission-only sales jobs that, I don't know, they were just those kind of things you found on I found them on Craigslist. And the one that paid to train you was selling solar power. The guy who did the interview was a guy who could sell you a blender at the state fair on a day you never thought about blenders. I have always been fascinated by con artist movies, The Sting, The Lady Eve, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I love those kind of movies. And I vaguely or not so vaguely sensed that this guy was up to no good, but I wanted to know how they did it. I had this curiosity, and they paid $600 a week to train you for 2 weeks, and my rent was $1,200. So I took the training. The middle of the second week, they disclosed the trick that this particular company used to engage the customer's greed to produce a one-call close. And I was like blown away. It was everything I suspected it would be. And then I felt like I owed it to the guy to go out and try and sell some deals, but really it would just make a good movie someday. And lo and behold, I started closing deals and making money and discovering that the things I was learning to do to earn that customer's trust and bring clarity to their chaos were exactly what I hadn't done when I was in the film business. And the reason why I didn't progress further than I did or get hired was I was doing everything I could to destroy someone who might hire me's trust and sabotage any success that I might have found based on my talent or the opportunities that my work so far had created. So it was this really life-changing experience, all the while this growing sense that I was working for scoundrels was developing and putting people in business with a company that I wasn't in their best interest. And so as much as I was learning, I also was, kind of, so I left that company, went to work for a different company that was a little better, but had a similar way to engage the customer's greed to close the deal. And then from there, I went to someone I worked with there started their own company, asked me to come work for them. I said I would do it if they made me VP of sales. And what was the other? Oh, gave me a piece of the company, which they did. And so all of a sudden, here I was. This company had two friends and family sales, and that was it. And within 6 months, we had built sales teams in San Diego and Los Angeles, and we're doing millions of dollars a month. And it was really exciting. There's some things you just know how to do. I have a unique ability to turn salespeople into closers. And so the yogis say if you want to practice something, if you want to learn something, practice it. If you want to master it, teach it. And I mastered the art of closing by teaching other people how to do it. That company imploded, and I ended up going to a different company, and it was a very reputable company selling the highest quality products with a huge commitment to customer service. And I had to find a way to be successful there without resorting to this sort of trick that I learned to play on customers or that I taught other people to play on customers. And so I thought about when I first came to the startup and didn't have a sales team. And so I was going on all the leads, and I had put in place this whole elaborate warehouse call thing, which you can read more about in my book, but it's pretty fascinating, crazy. And if you ever want to know why you bought a car on a day that you were just looking or things like that, it'll give you a lot of information about that, and hopefully in a entertaining, dramatic fashion. But I was ready to do all that stuff, but I didn't need to. And what I realized was the reason I didn't need all that stuff is because I had belief that I knew that moving forward today with our company was a really good decision for the customer. I was very connected with that, and I was able to transmit that to the customer without having to engage their greed to make them do it today. And so I brought that to the new company that I was working for, had a lot of success, and all the great things that were happening in my life as a result of honing the skill of closing and earning customers' trust and being able to deliver on that were so meaningful to me that I decided to start coaching other people, which I did in different industries, and seeing how the presentation skills I had learned designed to produce in one call close could also apply to other industries, even industries like B2B sales, where you can't necessarily, it's not even possible to get a yes on the first day. All you can really get on the first day is a no or a thanks for your time. But anyways, that led to coaching and consulting. And then I realized that there really wasn't enough time to explore this with every person that I just, you know what? A lot of people can't afford me. So I put it all in a book. And the book's called The Joy of Closing. And the second part of the book is a how-to. First part's how I came into the knowledge that I came into. Second part's a how-to on either earning that customer's business the first day or at least making the best first impression while you have the element of surprise. And then the third part is about creating happy customers and really closing people on 5-star reviews and referrals and all the things that make a company successful in the modern age.
And I love that you said if you had known what you know today, back when you were a filmmaker, that career would have taken off in different ways or been better. Because I think a lot of people think of artists and people in careers where it's more of a creative field that you're not selling, you don't have to close, there's no point of sale situation. But
Oh, it's worse than that. I mean, I walked around with the idea that my talent was the most important thing about me getting hired. And that's just not the world. People hire you because they want to work with you, because they trust you. And this multi-million dollar thing that they're placing in your hands, they want to have confidence that you're going to do a great job. And you have to communicate with them, that to them in everything that you say and do in order to build that trust.
Because there's people listening who are in the creative fields, right? There's artists of all kinds. I love that this book isn't just for salespeople. So even if you are an artist and you definitely don't think of yourself as being in sales, this book is something you should pick up. So what was the inspiration and how did you manage to sit down and write a book? I personally have written books, but I love to write. And I know that a lot of people write the idea of staring at a white piece of paper and getting those words on the page is very daunting. I've taught writing workshops. I know psychology there. I'm curious, how did you get this done? Did it feel natural or was it something you really had to work at to get yourself to put all of your thoughts and knowledge and expertise and distill it down into the written word?
I've been a writer all my life and I've sold screenplays and things like that, but I had never written a book and I just sensed that I had something to communicate. And so it just started with me. When I woke up every morning, I committed to writing for 5 minutes. So I just would open my laptop and start typing. And I normally write with longhand, yellow pads, and then turn that into typing. But in this case, I knew this world so well, and I had so many stories and all that stuff. So I wrote this very kind of free form, not structured, long ass first draft. And then when I felt like I didn't have much more to say, I printed it and read it. And I just remember my notes. I wrote down, you have something to communicate. There's something unique that can come really from you. And I don't know, I sort of committed to working it out. And then I started working on a second draft and I got a little bit, and I knew what I wanted to cut out because I knew like the first part of it had to be my biography or it's a work memoir just to establish, first of all, it's a fascinating story, but also it's how I came into this knowledge, which isn't, oh, someone taught me how to close and now here's how you do it. It's, I was taught one thing. I had these experiences which changed how I approached closing and how I thought of my customer. And here's how that took place and why that will work for you, or at least how I think it'll work for you. That really needed to be part of the book. But initially, it was like the sad story about all the people who had done me wrong. And that's not really the truth of it. The truth is, it's a hero's journey from mild curiosity to being a hand in. It's not an easy story to tell. You don't want to tell how you participated in ripping people off, but I had to go there in order to communicate the truth of my experience. And ultimately, that there's a better way to do this. I think the motivation was I didn't want anyone else to be trained the way I was, which, like I said, was to engage the customer, and to engage yourself and the customer's greed, to impose your will on the customer. That's just not the truth or the beauty or in any way what motivated my success. Was motivated by earning people's trust, delivering on everything I promised, being an agent of change for my customers that led to a satisfying, happy experience. And that experience is so powerful and so unexpected. I did not sign up with scoundrels to become a trustworthy person, but it turns out being trustworthy is the best way to earn someone's trust. And so ultimately, I'm really proud of how that made my life evolve. But it's a little messy getting there. And I felt like that had to be part of the book. And so basically, I ended up cutting all the parts that I felt had victimized me and really turned it into a hero's journey. That was the first part. So I knew what to do there. But then there's like, how do you do the how to? And I just structured it one step at a time. And all that was pretty free flowing and seamless, except I didn't know how specific to get about what I sell versus what people reading the book might sell. And I ended up making it not very specific about what I had either. I gave examples from my coaching and from my own experience, but I didn't want to make it how to sell solar power. I wanted to make it how to use one call magic to make the best first impression and prompt a one call, how to get the customer. You give the customer all the information they need to make an informed decision, and then do everything you can to prompt an impulse buy. That's what one call magic is. Except that, and then I had to figure out how to write the chapter on closing, because if you're writing a book called The Joy of Closing, you better have a chapter on closing that is extremely comprehensive. And that one absolutely took me the longest. But also part of it was thinking about how what I have to share is different than what's out there. and really framing it in that context so that when people see the word closing, they're not going to go, oh God, it's another one of those. I wanted really to make something very at odds, very disruptive towards the culture of what's closing, and to use the word closing to take on the stigma that's attached to it. Because sales is not necessarily a dirty word, but closing almost always is. And I love being able to turn that around.
And I love that you were able to put all of this into a book. I think books are some of the best value that's out there for ways to learn from the experts and people who really know what they're teaching and talking about, because it's the price of a book, much less normally than a workshop you attend or getting one-on-one.
It's a fraction. It's a fraction of a workshop. Yeah. Yeah. And people, it's so funny. People are willing to write that check for a workshop, but getting them to buy a book is a very uphill battle, which is fascinating because I'm still trying to figure out how to sell a book. But one thing I know is that writing a book makes you a really good, it really enhanced my ability to coach and consult and has led to a lot of success in that area. Even while book sales have been a struggle, it really does help people want to work with you and understand what you're going to do for them and make you better at it, because you have to, if I'm figuring out how to get a reader to take in what I'm trying to get across, if I can do that for a reader, I'm going to be a lot better at getting an individual salesperson or a sales team to understand the value of what I'm recommending.
So let's all write this down. Everyone listening, less Netflix, more reading of books.
Yes, please. Or there's an audiobook. You can just listen to my audiobook if you want. It's 3.5 hours of me reading this book, but which is one of the hardest things I've had to do. I don't know if have you done your audiobooks?
Oh, it's hard. Yes. It's because you're reading, and because when you're the author, it's something that you wrote. I don't know about you, but I'm constantly wanting to change a word or edit, because that's what I do when I'm rereading a draft. I'm like, oh, let me put this here.
Let me tell you something. I never met a hyphen I didn't like. Yeah. And so like I have like whole I will never write a book with as many hyphens in it as this, just knowing that I have to go do the audiobook someday. It's crazy how hard it is to read a sentence with hyphens and multiple clauses in it and still have energy by the time you get to the period. Oh my God, it all feels like one long tongue twister at some point.
Yeah. But I'm glad you did it, because it makes the book more accessible for people to be able to, and they connect with you because it's you reading it. It's your voice. It's not a hired actor. So I think that's fabulous. There's people listening who have expertise. They have experience in something. It might not be closing or sales. Maybe it's expertise in knitting, whatever it is. And they would love to be a consultant, an expert in what they know very well, and create a living around it, some kind of a career as an expert. And you've done that. So what advice would you have for someone who says, I don't want to work for somebody else? I have an expertise. I have knowledge that people seek out. How do I turn that into a way to make a living for myself? What would you say to somebody in those shoes?
Sure. After you figure out the inspiration and the need that what you're creating is going to fill in the marketplace, eventually it sounds like you're dealing with like entrepreneurs, or I love the word wantrepreneurs. That's such a great word. And what you might want to consider about that, or I'll say it how I like to say it, what you really need to recognize is that if you're raising money, you are a closer. If you're getting someone to write a check, you have made your agenda their idea. At the point that signature hits the DocuSign, you have closed someone. And so if you want to take that on in the most conscious and powerful way, figure out how to be a good closer, because it doesn't matter how good a knitter you are if you can't get someone to write you a check to support the expansion of your knitting into a business. It's probably a hard example, but your idea is only as good as your ability to communicate it. And so anytime someone's writing you a check, you have closed them. So maybe developing your closing skills is at least as important as whatever skill that you're bringing to the table that's worthy of someone's investment.
I love everything we've been talking about. I think the area that you teach about is a part of every single business, whether people realize it or not. Sometimes you are your own sales department because you're a solopreneur and it's just you. And so you wear all the hats, including sales, sometimes
until you want to expand. But oddly enough, I think solopreneurs are automatic closers because they did raise money. They know they're so in touch with the integrity of their intentions in terms of how they're going to treat the customer, how they're going to deliver on the promises that the pitch makes. They know all that stuff. They know exactly they know all the things about their company that a customer is going to fall in love with. And then when they go out to build a sales team, they hire a great presenter who doesn't have that connection, and they can't figure out why they're not closing. And the answer is because the reasons people move forward with you are not because you have the best idea. It's because you have someone who can communicate that, who can work with a customer's resistance because they are dedicated to the idea that moving forward today is a great idea. So it's really important as you expand a sales team, as well as being able to, but most, if someone gets to the point where they actually have a business, they are probably already good at closing on some level. And it's just a matter of making that important when they expand their sales team, especially their sales team. The other thing that you touched on, which I just want to second, is that anybody in your company that interfaces with your customers has the potential to be a closer, has the potential to close them on the experience they're having as being 5-star and something that they need to tell the world about. And if you expose them to the idea that they have this power and let them experience what it feels like to do that for a customer and how meaningful it can be to them as a human being, as well as to the customer and to your company, obviously, it will lift the energy of everything about how your customers experience your company and lead to success that you can only imagine.
Amazing. How do people get in touch with you, learn more about you, and get access to your book?
So I have a website. It's joyofclosing.com. I'm running a special right now. If you buy 20 copies of my book, I will give you an hour of my time for you, your sales team, your ops team, anybody that you think will add value. And I love doing it. And I love all the different ways that can be powerful for your company. So it's bobofjoyofclosing.com. You can reach me there or just go on Joy of Closing Connect, hit the connect button. I'm on LinkedIn, Bob King. I have a TikTok channel called The Joyful Closer that I need to post more stuff on. Maybe I'll do some clips from this on. No, we need video. We need video, Flavia.
But I'll video after this.
I'll be a better TikToker at some point. And I'm on LinkedIn and I have a YouTube channel too, which also I need to, this I can post on there. I'm sure we'll put some nice pictures up. You'll send me some artwork or something. So those are all the ways. And my book is on Amazon. Internationally, you can buy my book on Amazon. Audiobook read by me, Kindle, and a paperback.
And it's Bob King, which I love because I don't have to spell it out or anything. It's pretty easy one. Bob King. People can look you up. And the name of your book is pretty memorable too. The Joy of Closing. That's pretty easy to remember. So for anyone that's driving, you can't take notes. Definitely don't take notes if you're driving.
No.
Just remember The Joy of Closing with Bob King. Bob, it's been
the joy of it. Yeah.
Yes. It's been so great having you on the show, learning more about what you do and what you bring to the table for all of your clients and customers. And just like you said, selling and closing, it's not really about twisting someone's arm to buy something they don't need. It really is being that matchmaker between the product or service that's going to be beneficial to the client and the client making that decision to move forward. So thank you so much for all
and embracing your role as an agent of change and a force for good in that customer's life, being willing to work with their resistance and having the confidence that moving forward is a great thing and not just leaving them to the wolves, which is what happens when you do a great presentation, make them want what you have, and then don't work with their resistance because now that person's going to go out, find it cheaper online, and buy a really bad version of what you could have provided.
Wise words. Thanks for being on the show today, Bob. It's been great chatting with you.
Thanks, Flavia. Great to be here and great connecting with your audience.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and if you leave a review on iTunes, I promise I will read every single review. If you know someone who makes a full-time living from part-time work, and maybe this is you, please visit lifestylesolopreneur.com to nominate a guest or to nominate yourself. Because remember this, money doesn't buy happiness, but money in the hands of a happy person, there is no greater tool.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Get Shift Done program. It's a lifestyle-changing online class to help you define your business and lifestyle ambitions and to set goals in a way you've never experienced before. This class will 10x your daily productivity with methods that will blow your mind. And if you use the coupon code podcast, the class tuition is 99% off. Visit GetShiftDone.com to enroll today.